All right, well, it's 7 o'clock. We'll get started. Let me push continue here. All right. I'd like to call together the April 15th, 2021 Tiverton Budget Committee meeting. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to
Flag,
the flag of
of
the
the United States of America,
Republic,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
God, indivisible, liberty, and justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Sherry, can you call the roll, please?
Joe Souza,
Present.
Sherry Ockery, Judy Jones. I see you, Judy. Thor Ockery,
Present.
Cynthia Isherwood,
Yeah,
Mike Janik,
Present.
Dave Perry,
Here.
John Edwards,
Present.
and Dan Darren is absent, and Joe Schramm is absent.
Dan, I'm trying to, all right. You should have received the minutes from the meeting of 4/1/21. Was there any problems with the minutes? Anybody review it? I'll entertain a
Mr.
motion.
Chair. Motion to approve.
Second.
I'll assume we have unanimous consent. Motion carries. Discussion of vote on count 1120, Town Administrator, which would be page 5 of your docket. So we have the Town Administrator here if he wants to explain his budget for us briefly.
So, well, what I have, actually mine's gonna be a little different than yours, because with the town council, we made some adjustment. The Zoom and IT services was taking out, so I think that was a $10,000 item. We took that out altogether. So that brings it down to 194,215. Does that comport with what you have?
That's what we have.
Okay.
That would be on the docket that you sent out, which would be the latest.
I don't recall what your docket looked like before. It gets somewhat confused between going back and forth between council and budget, so.
Yeah, it was 204,000, so it went down.
Okay. All right.
All right, are there any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve 194,215 Town Administrator account 1120.
Second.
Okay.
Can I assume we have unanimous consent? Any objections? Motion carries. Discussion and vote on account 1080 Zoning Board of Review, page 5 in the docket.
Make a motion to approve zoning board account 7140 for the amount of 4,500.
I'll second.
You have a motion and a second. I assume we have unanimous consent. No other discussion? Motion carries. Just make sure I'm checking these off as we go here. 7, discussion vote on account 2150, tax collector, page 7, has been removed from agenda for salary discussion. At this point, I'm going to recuse myself, and Sherry.
Okay.
Please.
I think that we had already talked about that. The town council reviewed it for salary discussion. And if you have the numbers, I'll ask for a motion.
But it looks like they left the full-time tax assessor, correct?
They did. The amount they have is 164.
Tax collector, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve 164,851. An account,
651.
I'm sorry,
Make sure you get it right.
correct, I'm sorry. I just got new glasses, I can't see too good.
No worries.
Okay, and that's account 2150, is that correct?
Yep.
Second.
Thank you.
You all set?
Yep.
Need a vote of unanimous consent?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have unanimous consent? Yes? Okay.
That passes.
Motion passes by unanimous consent.
Okay.
All right, I'm back. Discussion vote on OPEB account, page 7.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, John?
So since the administrator is here, I'd like to ask him, is the town council on board with a town contribution? I know we've kind of let this one go by the wayside for a while. Obviously the liability, I think, is, north of $23 million at this point for that account. So if the council would like to see, and the town would like to see, some contributions made, I think that's a good time to start.
So my understanding is from our meeting on Saturday that the council wanted to make this payment and federal money comes in to make a makeup payment for the one that we did not fund last year. So I think that's the gist of what they said.
Wonderful. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve $100,000 for the OPEB Trust Fund Employer Share. It's a new account.
Second.
Okay, oh, okay.
All right, at this point, I'm going to just want to say that I'm not willing to fund this account, so I'll be voting against it. And my reasons are, I realize we have this huge deficit, but it would seem to me the better method would be try to reduce the amount of money we're spending. And you may say, well, how do we do that? We have contracts, this and that. But in reality, what's $100,000 towards a $23 million debt? In factuality, the only thing that's going to fix this problem is what's happened in other communities where benefits are going to be readjusted. So, besides that, I'm just not into putting more money into the stock market for this town and thinking that we're going to grow. We've seen what happens when the market crashes, and we're watching everything we just made float away. So I don't know. It's up to the committee. I'm going to be a no, so it's not going to be unanimous consent as far at this point. So I'll call the roll, I guess. After John, go ahead.
So the only item I would add for discussion is, this current liability of $23 million is going to go up exponentially year over year over year. Every time we don't fund this thing, other communities have started to address it. Albeit, we are, one of the ones that's well behind the 8 ball. But the city of Newport is a prime example. They probably have a $300 or $400 million deficit in their OPEB funding. And at least they've got, $100 million in there to try and offset some of those liabilities. It's one of those areas that, the longer we kick the can down the road, the more that liability is going to continue to balloon. And unfortunately, we can't reduce benefits for, employees who have already retired. And so,
that's not true. That's not
Can
true.
I ask a question?
Look what happened in Central Falls. And you know what? It can happen here. And you know what? Are we kicking the can down the road? We should be addressing the fundamental problem, and that's the fact that we're spending more than we can afford for benefits. And we're allowing these insurance corporations to rip us off, basically. And we can't fix all that here, I understand. And 100,000, but that 100,000, in my opinion, I'm just not going to vote for it. That's all I got to say, because it's like, it's like a pebble in the...
Just to finish my thought, I know the employees do contribute to this. That's part of the contract. So, I think it's a good sign for the employer to at least do something as well. And, I understand, the gravity of the situation and how, large that deficit is that we're facing today, that actuarial deficit. It's not, it's just so everybody who's watching understands, it's not a true, like we owe $23 million tomorrow number. It's a, projected number based off of, the number of people who have retired and who will retire in the future and what those benefits are going to equate to. But, without the town council altering the contracts or going into negotiations with these unions and making substantive changes, the deficit is just going to continue to accumulate. And so, I feel like, for us as a budget committee, it would be wise to at least try and start to do something. I know we're not going to be able to boil the ocean tomorrow, but, we should be doing something to do this, because quite frankly, when these contracts were agreed to upon 40 years ago, this should have been set up and this should have been done. And it wasn't.
I disagree with that. Shouldn't have gave away defined benefit plans is what the problem is.
We're talking about it's not the DB plan. This isn't the pension plan. This is their health benefits in retirement. But again, I mean,
in Providence, it's like $1 billion in the hole. I mean,
yeah, I think and Chair, I don't want to cut you off, but I think that you and I are on the same page. I mean, if you're going to give something via contract, you should fund it, and that's the fundamental, process. Like, you wouldn't spend $1 if you didn't have $1 to spend. And unfortunately, our predecessors, on this committee and on the council for the last, 40 years have spent dollars that they had no intention of actually spending. And they've created a liability for us. And now we're here left to pick up the pieces.
Well, in my brain, I see eventually this stuff's we're going to be insolvent. There's no way we're going to be able to afford the cost. So whether it's, even if we get higher and higher and higher, eventually that's more we're going to have to write off. That's just my opinion. We're going to become insolvent in this state. So let me tell you, I think the sky's going to fall on us eventually. But Sherry?
I'd like to ask the town administrator if he has any opinions on this, and also, are we penalized in any way if we don't make contributions? No? Okay.
So, yeah, my opinion is we should make the payment. We deferred the payment because of our financial crisis last year. And it's not really a new account. This account's been around for a few years. There are contributions from both the employees and the employer.
Cynthia?
You muted, Cynthia.
Darren?
I am here, yes, vaguely. How are you feeling, Sherry, if I might ask quickly?
Can we do that after the meeting? Are you yes or no?
Correct, yeah, 250, I'm sorry. So they did drop it significantly. They still want to continue maintaining at least some of the limited tests that they were doing.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve $550 for account 3350.
Second.
I know it's only a few $100s, but just for the point of clarification, I did watch the council meeting, and it was apparent that it was one property that was going to be tested. And it kind of sounded like a neighbor dispute to me in a way. So I'm a little leery. I guess I'm going to vote against this one too. I don't know if it's going to be another 9-1 vote, but I'm a no. So I'll ask, if there's no other questions, I'll ask Sherry to call the roll.
I have a
John,
question.
go ahead, John.
So, Mr. Administrator, if it is a specific property that is causing these issues, is it the town's position that we'll try and recoup those funds from that specific property, or is this just something we're going to be out of pocket for?
This is something I assume will be out of pocket for. This is one specific property, but it is the water quality that's coming out of the Support watershed area. So they are definitely trying to monitor it to make sure that it is staying stable to where it should be. Apparently there was some significant issue with it prior. It has been I believe that they've been keeping it rectified, but they want to keep monitoring to make sure it doesn't get out of hand again. So it is due to farming. It's very difficult. We're not going to go after the farmer for it, I don't believe.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself from this entire discussion then, as an abutter.
Deb, Janet.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes,
There were
please.
9 of you total, so your last vote was 8-1.
Oh, thanks, Deb.
Welcome.
So who else is missing besides Joe Schrum?
Well, Dan Darren was, but he came on. That's the reason why I thought it was 9-1.
Okay.
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 You know what? We have unanimous consent.
You don't, because you have one recusal or abstention.
Okay. I'm sorry. Let's call the roll, sir.
Okay.
John had to make it hard.
Didn't mean to.
I have a question though. John seconded that. Can you second that and recuse
No.
yourself?
I gotta withdraw my second too. Then I guess.
Yeah.
I was unaware it was my neighbor.
Oh,
I'll second it.
Second.
I'll second it,
Dave, you
Sharon.
made the motion. Hold on.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry, I
You
did.
made the motion.
I'll
thought
second
John
it,
did.
Sherry.
All right, Mike Janik will second
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, so Joe Souza.
I'll say yes.
Okay. And Dave Perry,
Yes.
Mike Janik,
Yes.
Cynthia Isherwood,
Yes.
Thor Ockery,
Yes.
Judy Jones,
Yes.
and Dan Darren.
And yes, and with Mr. Souza voting yes, it sounds like it's unanimous.
It is unanimous.
And one abstention.
And one abstention, yep.
All right. So the motion carries. All right, we're on item number 10, discussion of the school budget presentation. Again, we're not voting tonight. This is just going to be general discussion because a lot of the members were absent. So we'll start off, I believe John had some stuff he wanted to speak on. So why don't we start off there, if you would?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, at the request of the chair, I reached out to Amy Roderick, who is the finance manager over at the school department, and requested some data from them, some backup information. And to be quite frank with the rest of the committee, I haven't gotten the information that I'm looking for. Specifically, I was looking for data as it related to budget to actuals for a trailing 5-year period, which I did receive. But then I also received, budget to actual for year to date. And included in that spreadsheet was, the budget to actual for the prior year. And when I looked at both spreadsheets side by side, I noticed that there was a significant difference in many of the accounts that were listed for last fiscal year between both documents. And so I've asked for clarification as to why there are differences. I was told that there are some amendments that were made, during the fiscal year to change those budgets, but it's really called into question, whether or not the data that we've received, or at least that I've received from the school department, has been accurate. So, as I like to say, it's trust but verify. And I'm having a hard time verifying at this point. And so, I wanted to ask the rest of the committee, what are the additional data points you were looking for, and perhaps we can collectively give those to the chair and ask him to go procure those from the school department for us. I did also reach out to the school department and ask for revisions on those spreadsheets. I think that it's imperative for us to be able to see, to do the analysis as to whether or not they've been able to budget appropriately. Over the past 5 years, what their original budget numbers were and what their actual spends were. And I think that there's some discrepancy there that we need to address, as well as some of the cost items. One of the things that I brought up at the last meeting, was the cost of the dishwasher at the high school, and whether or not they, gone out and looked at other items. And so are there ways to pay for that? And it seemed like that was the first time they'd heard of, those options, which are fairly common in the restaurant industry. So I just wanted to make sure that, the rest of the committee had a say in what information we were procuring. And again, in my discussions with the chair, it was decided that, I would reach out, get the information, compile it all together, and then distribute to the rest of the committee. But, without accurate numbers, I don't feel confident in doing that analysis and sharing it with the rest of the committee, because I don't want to be responsible for a poor work product. It's, garbage in, garbage out, as they say. So I'll stop there and listen to everybody else talk.
My question was, and I want to make sure I understand it. We're looking at a reduction in state aid. Was that like 300, was 300 and change?
Almost 700,000.
605, I believe, right? 605, 734.
It's even worse than I thought, 605.
It's an 8% decrease in state aid.
So if we were to just say level fund them at last year's appropriation, they would actually be short that much right off the bat.
No, we have to make it up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So even if we were to level fund, we still are going to put in more.
Right.
An additional 605,000 to make up just what the state's not giving them from last year. So it kind of puts us, I mean, it's going to be a tough vote. It's going to be, Sherry, go ahead.
I just had a couple questions. I mean, my questions, which if John, if everybody wants to email me any questions they have for the school, I can send it out to them. But one of my questions is the reduction. I mean, the state wouldn't make that calculation and that reduction unless they were looking at a significant student population reduction, or I think they lost, according to the website, something like 80 to 90 students, something like that total. I know they anticipate, an increase with the new housing that's being built. But I mean, I can't see that the state wouldn't. I'm not saying, I know Chris has put out, asked for information as to exactly how they came up with that. But the state made that calculation based on something. So, I know hopefully we'll get an answer from the stuff Chris sent out to everybody. The other question I had was, and I don't know if Mr. Edwards has any information on this, but do you have any idea when these two House bills are supposed to be heard that are asking for extra funds from the federal aid that came in? A big postcard went out that there's two House bills that are supposed to be heard that are going to be requested.
I have no idea what you're talking about. So
Yeah, I haven't
really?
heard about them either.
Okay, maybe your dad does. There's
Yeah.
two House bills that big postcard went out that are. I was wondering. I was trying to find information on them, but I don't know when they're supposed to be heard. Requesting money for the school from, I think, like 1.7 billion in aid that came in or something to the state.
So my understanding is that this last stimulus bill that came under President Biden, and I forget that, I know it was 1.9 billion, trillion, I forget what the big number is, but the school should be getting $1,788,000. And it'll be coming in May, half of it will be coming in May. That's our understanding of it. We had a meeting with RIDE this week. They did not confirm that that's when it's coming, but there's 3 years they can use it over. And then there's another pocket of money that came in December that is sitting in RIDE right now that is being, I think it's coming up very quickly to be eligible to be applied for. And my question would be I know that they say they had $500,000 in COVID expenditures and they really only had 14,000 in ESSER funds, which came out of the CARES Act to help offset that. But there has to be more than $500,000 worth of COVID-related expenditures. When you consider the IT expenditures for getting all these kids Chromebooks and the IT infrastructure that they had to put in, the staffing to do all that, any of these monies that are coming in from the feds to help mitigate all that should be used to offset their current year budget. And those money should be available for you to utilize against, future years as far as their operational budget goes. Those expenditures should come out of the current operational budget. It's not a continuation year after year to fund the continued COVID expenditures. Those are questions I would ask the school as to how they're accounting for those.
John?
Yeah, so and along those lines that the administrator mentioned, one of the questions that I have is around, and this was mentioned very quickly during our discussion, but Dr. Larkin said that there was this policy that the school committee had implemented, at some point where they said they wanted to have a one-to-one, piece of technology to a student. And the question that I have is surrounding, how that decision was arrived at, whether or not there was a fiscal impact statement looked at, as far as what that policy would do. Because if you're talking about one-to-one, piece of technology to a student, you're creating a budgetary structural deficit because you've created something that you have to fund on a recurring basis as new students come into the system and old students leave and technology improves. And, I want to say that the life cycle for these tech items is, 3 years at best. So, when we talk about that structural deficit that they have, the question that I have is how much of that structural deficit has actually been created by policies that have been implemented by the school department or by the school committee, and, less by just circumstances that they didn't foresee. And I'm going to be very cautious when I say this, but, they mentioned, for instance, the contracts that they have with their employees, and, they place a lot of blame on that aspect of it. And the question that I have is, how much of that structural deficit is created by contracts that were approved by the committee versus policies that were implemented by the school committee? And, to get that information, I think would be extremely helpful for us as a committee in determining, what the funding level is going to be for the school department. And also as far as it goes for transparency for the voters in this town, because, we shouldn't be just, taking, again, that I say trust but verify, but we shouldn't be, taking something at face value and just assuming that it's correct. It's our job as the budget committee to verify that the information that they're providing is correct. I apologize on the screen, just there we go. And so, I think that, that's one of the items that I'd like to see some more details on. And I also think that we should see some forecasts for, what the future years are going to look like for some of these accounts where they've just created recurring spends on. So we understand, what it is that, if we approve the number that they're looking for, what that number is going to grow to in subsequent years. It's beyond contracts, but, things like the IT spend, things like what do our contracts look like on the bus side? Things like what do the contract look like for waste management? One of those items in particular that really stuck out to me was the waste management contract. And that's an item that they seem to have underfunded for the last 5 years, knowing that you have a contract in place in order to take care of that. So those are some of my concerns. And, I'd really like to see, all of us get together and take a look at this in greater depth, because quite frankly, it doesn't seem like the school committee has ever looked at these numbers.
I just want to thank John for, picking up the pace on this, because, this is what I had hoped in the beginning, that certain members will work on things that they have knowledge on. And John seems to be putting a lot towards the school and finding out some things that, we needed to know, particularly on items for capital. So if you're not, receiving information from the school department, I'll send an email to the superintendent. I'm assuming the entire committee approves of what John is doing. There's no objections to him taking the lead on this there. I don't think we even need a vote to, create a liaison. I mean, he's taking the initiative to get it done, and we appreciate it. So I will send that email over and ask him to cooperate with you, because you are our liaison, and it would make it a lot easier for us to make an honest vote. Chris, the legislature, the budget, am I hearing it's going to be early June?
That's what I'm hearing right now. But, again, things are pretty fluid. Now that all this federal stimulus money has made inroads into Rhode Island as far as the numbers go, it's the guidance that is lacking at the moment, but it's surely to follow very quickly. My understanding is that all this guidance should be to us by early May. which will give the legislature plenty of time to make decisions on their final appropriations. And another aspect in that appropriation issue, just so that you're aware, is there's another bill that's out there that's related to maintenance of effort issues that has pretty strong legs right now. So those are all key components of putting budgets together. And the rationale behind the maintenance of effort issue is clearly targeted all this federal money coming in. So if there are expenditures that can be truly allocated and earmarked as COVID expenditures, these monies really should be utilized to strip those out of the budget to be paid for with the federal monies as they're intended to be done. Very similar to what we've been doing, you know, on a lot of what we're doing on our side. So it's, you know, it's just, it's a complete picture of trying to put the whole package together. And it's daunting because there's a lot to it. There are a lot of regulations that are going to be coming out. But at the same token, we're trying to do things, I think, even on the state legislature side, to not impact future structural deficits coming out of each municipality.
Go ahead, John.
So one other thing that, you know, on the line item when it comes to revenue, and I don't think we've gotten a clear picture from the school department on this at all, you know, is what do the projected revenues look like? I mean, you know, if we look at the history of, you know, the school over the, you know, the 10 years, you know, prior to the administration shift, you know, they were very astute at accumulating money in their fund balance. And, you know, they did so by underestimating things like Medicaid payments and, you know, having those payments actually come in, you know, well above what they estimated in their budget. And so you created that surplus. And so the question that I have is, you know, what does the revenue picture look like for this year, you know, for, you know, streams outside of what the state aid number is, which we know was reduced, and what the, you know, town contribution is. But we you know, without that picture, it's hard for us to make a determination on the funding level, I think, you know, without knowing what those ancillary revenues are going to be. And it seems to me that, you know, in the past, Medicaid is a prime example where there was a significant sum of revenue that came in for the school department that, you know, was always well and above what they expected. So, you know, for that number to suddenly drop down to, you know, a number under six figures is baffling to me. And, you know, maybe there's an explanation for it. Maybe there isn't. I don't know. But that's another area where, you know, I'd like to, you know, see us get some more detail on.
Dave, let me just ask you before you speak.
Sure, go ahead.
When they talk about the number of houses that are going to be built in Tiverton in the future, I know it doesn't really affect us in this next budget, but maybe in future budgets. Weren't a lot of those subdivisions approved because of a law that was changed state legislature when they were going to lose? In other words, you could have it on the books, but unless you acted on it, there was a time limit.
Yeah, there was. It was. They allowed them 10 years because of what kind of the depression we were in.
Yeah,
I guess the state of Rhode Island kind of grandfathered everybody in for 10 years, and 10 years are up. So that's why you see a lot of the building that's starting up again.
but it's not building. It's just they wanted to make sure that their plans were approved so that all the work they put in wasn't just, you know, discarded because it's grandfathered out.
Right.
So, I mean, that's why we've seen a lot of action at the planning board because of that law. And that's what I was told. It wasn't because it specifically.
So
And I'm also reading that a lot of empty nesters are moving here from New York and Connecticut. They're selling their big houses in New York and Connecticut and moving to Rhode Island into smaller homes. So it's not, yeah, I know it's.
Are you talking about the tolling of permitting? So that after the crash in 2008, that
Correct.
was
Yes.
a long period of time. Okay. That's,
Yep.
that law took place many years ago, but I do believe all that tolling is expired.
Yeah.
That's why we were seeing the number of housing developments that were coming to the planning board so they could concrete their plans.
Well, Joe, the other thing that's happening too, and you know, I've been saying this for a few years, is that rail that's coming into Fall River.
Yeah.
Tiverton's going to be a prime location to live. You know, if you're coming in from Boston, you know, you move by a house in Tiverton and take the train down in Fall River, and you're on your way.
Well, south end of Fall River's got a lot of development going on too.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, All right, so,
I had a question for Chris.
yeah,
Chris, you had mentioned that 1.7 million they'll be getting for the schools.
Right.
Is that part of the money that the town will be getting?
No, that's direct for them.
All right, so we're getting some money also, correct?
We'll be getting 1,550,000. And then there's another group of money that's coming in allocated to Newport County that we'll get on a per capita basis, which I believe, my estimate is that we haven't got a formal number yet from the feds yet, but it'll be probably close to 3 million.
Yes, and part of that money will be going to the schools also, correct?
No,
None?
none.
Wow.
isn't that broke out over a couple of cycles, so it's not in
Over a
one
2-year period.
2-year?
And believe it or not, we will still be going to speak to the governor about our lost gaming money because the state is getting reimbursed for a significant portion of lost revenue. So, there may be some significant monies coming in. So that doesn't, the thing with it is there are significant restrictions on it. You can't use it to offset your tax rate. Can't use it to fund pensions. There are a number of things that we can't use it for. So it's, this is going to be a matter that the town council is going to have to wrestle with as far as what is the best use for these funds to position ourselves better for the future. And, the town does have a significant amount of needs. Obviously, that we pushed off, millions of dollars worth of capital expenditures over the last couple of years. And,
Right.
We've deferred every expense that we can. So some of this is, as you'll see when we get to the lower line item down here about, the last meeting with the school committee, is they've pretty much taken out every item out of capital. And we've made some adjustments within some accounts that are related to COVID that we can truly attack with these funding sources that are coming in. But the council really does need to put together a complete cohesive plan that will be approved by the guidance that does come out.
It's Sherry, then John.
So Chris, you were talking about the legislation about the MOE. So is that legislation that's specifically addressing whether MOE can be reduced?
So the bill that's out there right now that has significant support, from what I understand, would put maintenance of effort at 95% of the FY 2019 education budget. But again, it hasn't passed yet. So that's, but I believe the governor is supporting it and the speaker and the Senate are supporting it right now.
You don't happen to know what the bill number is?
I don't have the bill number, but I will get it. I will get it for you.
Okay, thank you.
John?
I just wanted to make sure we were still on the school thing. My little one was having trouble with bed.
Yes, well, with school and revenue, yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, the final question, I guess, is should we submit any additional item requests through you in order to make sure that they're responded to appropriately, or what's the best path forward here?
I'm gonna send later on this evening an email to the superintendent and ask him to cooperate directly with you, explaining that you are our liaison to the schools and you are carrying the water for us.
Wonderful. And just to reiterate, so for anybody watching, any question that will not relate to the NEA or their benefits, because I'm explicitly prohibited from discussing those.
Well, we're more interested in what they actually need. I think we're looking for that number. Like the town did, the town went through their budget. I don't know I hope you all watched the budget hearings for the town council, because they really picked through the budget and knocked a lot of it out and pushed a lot of it off because we know we're going to receive some federal money. So they took those portions out of the budget so the town has really worked hard. The town council really worked hard and I'm hoping the school committee's doing the same thing to really pick through that budget and pick out everything they can, knowing that we are facing another tough year. So
For all intents and purposes, this is Greece 2010. This is where we are. For anybody who studied, financial history, Greece in 2010, like it was big time austerity. Like they cut everything. So that's kind of where we are because of, the state of our revenues. So, we need to make sure that everybody's rowing in the same direction. And hopefully for any of the school committee members that are watching, they're thinking in the same way, because I know when this thing initially hit, when this COVID initially hit, and we went through it, and I was on the council at the time, I suggested that we get together with the school committee in order to discuss how we could make the budgets work. And the school committee explicitly said, no, we are not interested in having a conversation with you. So, I hope that there's going to be some ability for them to come to the table and actually participate, rather than just demand.
Okay, is there anybody else?
So just for a little bit of clarity on the federal money that's coming in for the schools, I know the 1.7 million that they'll be getting is to try to rectify some of the lost learning issues. So they will be, that money is not, I don't believe is earmarked for past COVID expenditures, but the monies that did come in December that came out of the Trump administration were specifically related to, my understanding is, for COVID related expenditures for school openings, all those things that you would need to open the schools to keep them running, for distance learning and those kind of things. So that's they may not have true guidance on the 1.7 million, because they do have to formulate plans on how to rectify some of the aspects of these kids not getting, the education that they may have missed out on for the past year or so, and trying to, augment some programming. So you're going to want to keep an eye on how they formulate those as well for the future, so that, that's supposed to be a corrective action, but not a lifelong action plan. So.
Okay, we ready to move on?
Okay.
Okay, we're moving on to item 11. Discussion and vote on library services account 6630, page 15 in the docket.
I'm bringing Catherine in just so you have her here.
Well, I was actually gonna make a motion since we're still waiting. I mean, if we really don't have an answer on MOE, then do we want to do this discussion tonight? So can I make a motion to move this to a future agenda?
Well, I mean, we can, hold off on the vote, but I'd like to, entertain any discussion that wants to go on before we.
Okay.
So Sherry, just so that I can be somewhat clear on the bill that I know of about MOE was only related to schools.
Okay.
I don't believe they had a component for library in it. I could
Okay.
be wrong, but I will definitely get you the bill ID number, so that you can, look it up and go through it thoroughly. But I believe the biggest push was for educational spending on
Okay.
MOE.
And if I may also mention, this is Catherine Damiani, the library director. There is not any bill that I know of, to back up what Chris had mentioned, that concerns our MOE.
So the town council did, I believe, vote on the library. I think that the town council is pretty much up to date on most every account, other than something I'll discuss when we get to some fire things, when we get to the fire department budget during the review of what the council did.
Go ahead, John.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve 597,500 for account 6630 library services.
Second.
All right, we're not going to have unanimous consent on
I'd
that.
like to make an
We have
amendment to
discussion.
that motion.
Sherry,
I'd like to make amendment to that motion for the number of 585001.
do I hear a second? All right, I'll second that. All right, discussion. Chris,
So I know what you're trying to do with the 585001, but it actually has to be 585002.
I will change that to 585002. That's right, a dollar more, sorry.
I always wonder why it has to be $1 more. Is that,
I don't know, but I don't want you, if you're gonna vote that way,
it's
then
like you're poking them in the eye, you know?
I do think that their budget request was fairly reasonable. There was a nominal increase.
No, I do too, but we're cutting everything. We're cutting everything, and we're gonna be level funding everything, and, you know, we all have to take a little piece of the cut. We have to spread the pain around amongst all departments.
So,
Is it-
discussion.
Mike, go ahead.
I'm just looking at my notes from the February 25th meeting, and at that point, when the library services budget was discussed, we postponed the vote pending the state aid update. And I know you said that there wasn't any guidance at that point, or at this point. Am I correct in that, Catherine?
So we received proposed fiscal year 22 state grant aid numbers, but it all depends on if that passes the legislature. So I do have an updated number for that, and I am more than happy to provide that number. I actually just pulled it up myself before the meeting.
Would that alter your request?
I don't believe so at this time, just because we are not sure if that will pass the legislature. Also, in order for me to amend my request, it would have to be approved by my full board. So I cannot do that myself.
So if we vote on anything at this point, it's going to be, and this is for the committee, it's going to be with the understanding that we can revisit this in the future when we get the full characterization, whatever
We're
money you
still taking preliminary votes. We're still trying to construct the budget at this point.
understood. And I just been making that point that this would be revisited if the numbers have changed to any significant degree.
Is there anybody else?
Do we have
Sherry?
any idea when we will have an answer on that? That's kind of why I was worried about doing this tonight.
I believe it would be June once the governor's budget is passed, but as we know, things have not been
Right.
on schedule.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there anybody else? All right, I'll ask this. Do we want to wait? Or do we want to go ahead and just call the roll and do this vote now? Just in general, I personally would.
It's only going to be a sense
Every
of the
vote,
committee.
anyway.
Do anything else.
Say vote. All right. And Sherry, we'll vote on the amendment first. Just call the roll, please.
Could we review that amendment, please?
Sure. The amendment is for to approve a budget of 585,002 for the library.
It's level funded.
Level funded.
Understood.
And I made that based on because I didn't think we really know what the revenue totals are completely yet, and that's the reason why I'm doing that. So.
Well, quite frankly, I mean,
okay,
even if I don't see, I don't see this. I mean, I said I want to, everybody's got to share the pain this year again. But even if, we were able to cut them less because I know there's no state, I don't see us doing that anyway, me personally. I feel bad level funding, but to cut it even more, I think they'd run into problems. So I think they're just going to have to deal with the level funding this year if that's the way we vote. And that's the way.
Do you want me to take the roll call on the amendment first?
Yeah, please. I spoke enough. Thank you.
It's okay. Okay. I'm a yes. Joe Souza.
I'll say yes.
Judy Jones.
Yes.
Thor Ockery.
Yes.
Cynthia Isherwood.
Yes.
Mike Janik.
No.
Dave Perry.
No,
John Edwards.
No, my daughter apparently says no as well.
Okay. And Dan Darren dropped off, right? Okay.
He did drop off.
Okay. All right. So
Says 1, 2, 3, 4,
That, yep,
5 to
4,
3.
it passes 4 to 3,
5 to 3.
5-3, Cindy.
5.
Yeah, Joe Souza, yourself,
Oh,
Thor,
yeah,
Judy
Thor.
Johnson, Cindy.
Did I ask Thor?
Yep, you did.
Okay.
I kept a tally when you did the votes.
Good, thank you.
And again, this is a preliminary vote. If we have some good news come in from the legislature that, this town's going to see a little more money, then we'll be able to hopefully push it back up to what's requested rather
Yeah,
than what we
I
did last year.
think that there needs to be, more discussion and us to get more information too, so we may
All right.
need to revisit that.
Any other discussion? We'll move on.
I just want to clarify, and I apologize because my daughter was screaming. So we approved the amendment, yes, but did we vote on the
We did not,
motion as amended?
The amendment.
Okay, so we need to vote on the motion as amended.
You're
then.
right. We got to vote on, now we'll vote on the main motion. You're correct.
Apologize for being a stickler, but gotta be.
Well, I'm assuming we're not going to have unanimous consent. So Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
yep, John Edwards,
No.
David Perry, sorry.
That's highly insulting.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And it's no.
Mike Janik,
This is to the original requested amount.
It's the same number. It's just in voting in full on the motion.
As amended, so it would be
As
the
amended.
original, that 585,002.
No.
I'm a yes. Thor Ockery,
Yes.
Cynthia Isherwood,
Yes.
Judy Jones,
Yes.
and Joe Souza.
Yes.
I don't know if I said I'm a yes, but I am. Okay,
All right. Item number 12. Discussion and vote, review of resolutions and any other new changes. I don't have the backup on this, I'm afraid to say.
Table till next meeting.
I think, John, go ahead.
So just a question on the resolution piece, and this is, I think it's appropriate given the item that we're discussing. The question I had is whether or not this committee would be interested in a resolution for, taking and restricting any dollars left over in, for instance, the salt and sand account on an annual basis and sticking those aside to purchase new plow trucks. It seems to be a bone of contention for this town. And we seem to be running into, capital requests on a regular basis to replace 60-year-old plow trucks. And so that's a resolution I'd be interested in drafting and supporting. Just curious as to what the rest of the committee thought.
can you repeat where you said what you were, the beginning of what you wanted the resolution to say?
So essentially what it would be is that any dollars left over on an annual basis in the salt and sand account that we use to, clear the roads, would be moved into a restricted account created solely for the purchase of plow trucks.
Approximately how much has been in there historically? I mean, it's I know
We-
it varies every year. but
Last few years, we've been lucky, man. We've had like a 7,500,000, excess in that account,
Yeah.
which if we replaced, 3 plow trucks, we'd be well ahead of the game at this point, but we're not.
And then a portion of that would go to paving, or all of that would go to paving, right, from that account? I mean, well, for this year, I mean,
It'd be annually renewable, so.
the council has kind of took the charge on the capital by taking control of the casino money. And if we do receive, a couple of $1 million in casino money, so I don't know if we need to do that this year. I think we need more, wondering how we're even going to fund paving this year. So, I mean, if we can put it to a vote.
I don't have anything fleshed out at this moment, so I think it's worth
Well, I'm
it.
saying if you want to put a draft together, we'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. I think the only thing that I would wonder, John, is, I know that they have, maybe there is some way to figure out an amount that, that can be held over. I know that, it has helped us a lot in years when we haven't gotten as much snow and we didn't have to use as much out of that. But I agree, if there's a way to use some of that money to try to buy equipment, that I think it's a great idea.
And
Well, as of 12/31, and that's the latest that I've gotten from the treasurer, there's 69,000 left off the 95,000 that was budgeted.
Yeah.
2 years, that's a plot truck.
And I don't know, Joe, if it's okay, but I also am working on I would also like to, I'm still working on it. Don't have it together yet, but, and again, it's a resolution that has to do with the possibility of us trying to draft or come up with something to allow for the police to actually use their detail money to go towards their cars. So like just the money that they get from doing details to be able to utilize that. There is I had talked to the treasurer, there's some issues with the fact that they already have a maintenance account set up, and so the wording of the resolution has to kind of be, I didn't get a chance to talk to Chris about it either, to see what people really think, but it's something that the police chief discussed, and I don't know if they were allowed to use that, then if that would also require us to write something in there that says that's what they're going to use towards buying and maintenance of their police vehicles. There's just a lot of questions, but it's something that I've been thinking about and was trying to work on a resolution.
Come on, John.
So the along those lines, since we're talking about equipment purchases, I'd also like to see a resolution that took some of the rescue billing money that comes in, that revenue dollars, and restricts that for the purchase of an ambulance. As we know, the fire department, the way the national fire standards are structured, is that you should have a frontline ambulance for 5 years, and then that should move to a second line ambulance for another 5 years, and then come off the road entirely. And we saw 2 years ago where there was a huge bone of contention because we had multiple ambulances break down. It's an obvious area where the town needs to improve its equipment. And I think that we should look at potentially using some of that rescue billing money into a restraint, whether 40 or 50% set aside for the purchase of those ambulances, so we don't get caught, for lack of a better word, with our pants down when the next ambulance fails.
It was something that I had wanted to talk to Chris about, and email him and try to see too what he,
See you, Deb. Hang on.
I know.
Okay, Deb, go ahead.
Thank you. I love all those ideas of being proactive because I hate having to fund things over a lot of years. Just not sure if you're all aware that we've had a resolution for at least 4 or 5 years where 25% of leftover went into a capital fund. It was about 500, correct, Chris?
Yep.
500,000. And we did pull out some of the items that were requested for capital for this year and earmark them into that. So we planned on spending about 400 from that. Of that was 2 chassis and plows for DPW, 3 police cars, 2 that we were paying for all 3 up front. 1 was going to be rebated back to us to go back into that capital fund. And use plow and attack. I'm just looking at all the
We
things.
bought 2 Lucas chest protectors.
Lucas.
We haven't bought yet. We're out to bid for them.
Right.
And there was one other item.
It was a DPW. I've got things crossed out and,
Yeah, I actually was gonna ask for that list because that was part of my question
So
was
so
that
the,
we had not had, we've not gotten any, you sent us out some stuff. I think when they did the capital, when they voted on all of that. So that came out of an account that was extra money that you had saved by cutting off spending last year, Chris. So that's not money that we are actually voting on out of the budget, right?
right, we took it out of the budget. In other words, it's not in the budget anymore.
Okay,
So instead of trying to tax people again for it,
yeah,
because those monies were surplus, it was generated by the savings that the town side of the budget did generate. Because we did everything we could to make sure we, wound up in the plus, and we did.
right,
That those monies can now be reallocated for what was actually in the budget last year. They were, we took them out of the budget last year to make sure we made it to the end of the year. But for the fact that we had generated some other savings and other revenues that made us whole, we can actually use these monies to backfill what should have been bought a year ago.
right,
So the chest protector, the police cars, the
the plows,
plows,
the chest.
I had noticed that the fire truck, and is that just because it's gonna be a time finance payment?
That's exactly why.
Exactly.
That's $1
Yeah.
million purchase that, we really can't commit, that we don't know how much money will ever be in that municipal capital account. So it would be foolhardy for the council to allocate and spend those monies without having a vote of the taxpayers to fully fund that, because it's going to be over time. It's going to be a 10-year, it's going to be $100,000 a year for 10 years. It is what it is. I mean, but it's desperately needed in this town, and the council sees it. The fire chief made a very good rationale for it. I am fully supportive of it. It's a frontline piece of equipment that we truly need for both safety and public safety.
But
So
we don't have, the problem is that we have to have a garage to put it in first.
no, it'll fit.
We do.
This
It'll
truck
fit
will fit any of
south
our
side.
garages.
It won't fit in the north end.
Yes, it will.
No, it will not.
Well,
The door's not tall
we
enough.
measured it. It will fit in. No, it is. This is not a ladder truck. This is a Quint. It's a
I saw
totally
it.
different truck.
I saw the truck they were talking about.
No, I disagree with you, Joe.
Well,
So, and just to go back, that funding was in a capital fund that the voters did already, they approved by resolution.
Correct.
And that's what funded that.
Right. But we tried to make sure we took everything that was already asked for by and approved by taxpayers already, that were never expended, and use those funds to support those requests.
I think the other thing, Chris, that we purchased was for the harbor master, the trailer for his,
Right, I think you're
for
right.
his boat.
So just so that I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but you'll find as we get on to line item 14, that the remainder items that were still left in the budget have now been also taken out of the budget, because we're going to utilize the federal money coming in to help augment and support those initiatives. Except for the ladder truck, the Quint, and the library capital.
over the years, I've heard many requests to do exactly what Sherry and John are talking about. And the reason I think the town has always said no, I mean, what's next? The harbor, the harbor commission is going to want to keep the mooring fees and, use it for their projects and other, and then there are some that don't, in all reality, the money needs to go through the general fund, I think, and be voted on by the taxpayers. So I'm just saying, in the past, we haven't.
Argument to that is, Joe, that we fund these pieces of equipment, the apparatuses that we're utilizing, we expend them and never put the money aside to replace them.
Well, and
then
the resolutions would
always get
also be voted on.
Yeah, they'd be voted on an annual basis too.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying the reason why I think it's been reluctant to do it in the past was because exactly what it said. They want to, it can grow. And how many restricted accounts are you going to create? John?
So I guess the question would boil down to then, at what point do we draw the line? Where does the town draw the line? At what equipment is necessary in order to operate? And, do we want that we have equipment replaced on a regular basis. And, you know, I think there's an argument to be made for, you know, police cruisers, for ambulances, and for plow trucks, you know, but, you know, for the harbor master to keep, you know, for instance, the mooring fees in order to replace a boat, you know, I don't think that there's necessarily an argument to be made there for that piece, because, you know, typically you're going to get maintenance and such. But items where you'd have a regular replacement schedule, you know, and they're huge capital expenditures that we've seen other councils historically just kick the can down the road on, you know, trying to squeeze every last ounce out of, you know, operational efficiency out of one of these pieces of equipment. You know, that's an area where I think that we can improve upon and, you know, possibly add some value as a budget committee. But of course, you know, we'll draft the physical resolutions and vote on them as a committee.
Okay.
Joe,
Anything else on this issue?
Joe, I was the original sponsor of that resolution, taking that 25% from whatever was left over from the previous year and putting that into a capital expenditure account. And I think that's the right way to go. You know, we've seen it done this year, and, you know, John's right. Maybe there are some councils who didn't want to, you know, adhere to the 3 cars, 2 cars, you know, a new rescue every 3 years. I think that's something we've got to work on. And I don't know how we put that in there, that we get back to doing that and buying this equipment, because it's needed. It's needed. We used to buy 3 cars, 2 cars, 3 cars, 2 cars. You know, when you needed a rescue, it was every 4 or 5 years we brought a new rescue. And I don't know how we fix that part of it, but I think taking that 25% and putting that in a resolution is the way to go.
Only because it's, in a way, it does make sense because the money's there. It's not like you're re-taxing for it.
Right.
All right.
It's building an account, and I have no problem. I mean, we do it with, you know, with elections. We do it with reevaluation. So, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with an account like that we vote on through resolve and build up a pot to purchase it. So it kind of takes the ripples out of the,
It does.
so, all right. Are we all set on this one?
Okay.
All right, item 13 was discussion on any sections of budget that we want to consider for final votes for a future agenda here. I guess the idea is, is the council completed their budget?
So they have not, because I do know I have some items that I'm going to go over to you when I go through item 14. There'll be, I know there's at least 20-some thousand dollars in fire that did not get adjusted out. It's actually a significantly higher number than I thought it was going to be. It was for the 2 rotators and the deputy chief. I forgot that when we did that, we budgeted holiday time, uniform, you know, clothing allowance, and EMS incentives for those. And it's you know, it winds up being a significant piece of money. So that the council did not vote those out, but I will explain to you tonight what they are. And I'm pretty sure the council will agree that those numbers also need to come out of the budget as well. So, and again, I think the council is at the same point that you'll be after tonight. I think between Tom Haley and myself working through his spreadsheets of, you know, the revenue projections that we provided and an estimate of where the assessments will be for tax wise, that we can give you a better picture as to where we stand financially, what the tax rate would look like. And then from there, I think it would be more appropriate to then decide what things you want to, you know, finalize as expenditure votes. And if there's more tweaking you need to do within budgets. That's just my view of it. I don't think we have a complete enough picture right now to make a decision to finalize votes until you actually do that drill with all the expenditures, the revenues, and the assessments before you can actually see what the tax rate looks like to decide to finalize any of this stuff yet. And I think the council's in the same boat that you're at right now.
I think I'm sorry, that part of that's my fault because I put it on the agenda more for people to, you know, discuss whether there were sections of the budget that they wanted to go back and readdress, but I think even like what you said, after we get all of the
Yep.
big picture, we can do that still.
That's exactly, yeah. It's a, rock or a hard place. It's both one of these. Either we're gonna cut more or we're gonna, finalize. But
All right.
knowing what that picture looks like is critical now to trying to move forward. So I'll work with Tom Haley to try to work through that this week and get something to you for next week.
So item 14 was an update from the town administrator and town council budget meeting. I believe we just had that, right? So,
No, we didn't.
From
because that-
Saturday.
I'll go through
you
some
got more?
There are more changes you don't have.
No, I mean, you told us that you weren't ready with the,
No, I'll bring you up to speed with what the council did on Saturday.
Yep.
And I'll let you know of at least the items that the council doesn't know. So that by the time I get done with the next council meeting on this on Monday, you'll both be at the same place.
Mhm.
All right, so it won't take me long. I'll go through it very quickly if you want.
Yep.
So on page 2, all the capital except for the fire truck and the municipal capital for library are staying in the budget. And the only reason why we don't know if the federal money will allow us to use it for library capital at the moment. So again, that might be another adjustment we can make once we get further guidance. So we didn't want to commit to saying we could do it if in fact it's not allowable. And the fire truck, obviously, because it's a 10-year payment, there was no way, even with the federal money, we would be able to accommodate that. And then there's a grayer item in there, that's the school's capital. And I did want to go through at least with that with you, because when I get I know that you've been through some of the school capital, but there are 4 specific line items they asked for from the school board when they submitted their letter on January 13th. It was to refurbish bathrooms at the high school and the middle school, $350,000. Replace the siding at Ranger at $7,500. The kitchen equipment district-wide at $90,000. And the maintenance contract for the heating of 5 schools at $10,000. Now, granted, that comes to $457,500. My only issue is heating contracts are not capital.
Yep.
Operational expenses.
Correct.
Which I don't know how that can be classified as capital, but that's up to you and the school board to work your way through that. But there is no light pole, there's no other things that were being discussed at the last meeting that you had with the school.
Chris, I mentioned that to him when Peter was on, that shouldn't be in capital.
Okay.
That should be in their budget. It's a yearly cost,
It is. It's an operational cost.
operational costs, right?
kind of, just my opinion. I think some of the members agree with me, but the priority and probably the only things that we were going to look at funding this year was the siding on Ranger School and perhaps the light pole. And we need to get better figures on the light pole.
Well, all I'm telling you is the school board didn't ask for that. That's why I'm saying that. I can give you a copy of what they did ask. So
We met with them.
it's not in the formal request they submitted to me to put in the budget. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that Dr. Sangioni said that they had because I had asked, I know that I thought there had been someone that was doing some volunteer work with the light pole, and he said there was.
Trying to get it
update us on
into
that,
court. They're trying to go after the contractor.
So I'm just trying to stay in conformance with the charter. The charter says that the school board, with their school administration, submits to the town administrator what they want on the docket that I give to you.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, and I'll give you copies of this. This is what they asked for.
Yeah.
They didn't ask for a light pole. So,
Well, we received the same thing, and then
Okay.
the light pole.
all
was
right,
carried.
I'm just trying to comply with the charter.
Can I ask a question? Right. I mean, one's on
Good.
the dishwasher for $90,000. I thought at our meeting, first off, they dropped that number down to 55. And then we discussed, ulterior ways to fund that, such as, contracting with, for instance, an Ecolab, shifting those dollars into their operating budget and, paying significantly less. We're talking like, I don't know, $1,500 a year for that item. Has there been any motion or exploratory conversations had on that side, or are they just going to tell us they want 90 grand come hell or high water?
Well, I think your suggestion to them, and I heard Sanchioni say he was going to look into it. So if they looked into it, I would assume they already figured out they can lease one and do it pretty cheaply, actually. So
I guess all I would be saying is that while this is what the formal submission is, if they want to
Yes.
revise it, they need to give you a revised formal submission.
Right.
Because right now you can't act on something they haven't given to you.
Right.
That's kind
The
of
only
no
item
different.
right now
It's no
is
different than what my budget looks like. I can't put in 5 administrator cars if the council hasn't approved it. I mean, it would be ludicrous for me to do that.
I sent them an email asking if they wanted, if they were going, basically, Chris, exactly asking that. But they said they weren't going to revise the presentation that they sent the budget committee, and that then they would explain it when they presented.
Okay.
So,
But that doesn't matter if it didn't go through the town administrator. He can't put it on the budget.
right.
He can't ask for it.
Yeah, it's been a little confusing this year with the request from the superintendent being
So,
different than.
Joe, do you want to send them something asking for a new formal, a corrected formal?
Sherry, I'm gonna delegate the responsibility to you to make sure that not only one that we inform them that John is our liaison to the school, but they should, renew their request for capital if they want the light pole included.
Okay. So I'm going to continue on where we were with the town council review. On page 4, under the Board of Canvassers, I just want to make sure that you have under the elections restricted, the amount is 0.
All right, that was where Joan was talking.
Yes. So because she has enough money to run the elections for next year in a restricted fund, she doesn't need any. So those accounts should be 0. And then when you get on to page 5 for the financial town referendum, you will also be funding the FTR from her restricted election account. So that also will be 0.
So that line item will be taken right out of the budget.
Yep. And then on the town sergeant, I know that your last budget had $1,500 on it. The town council moved to make it 1,000. So I know I sent all this to you electronically, but I'm trying to explain to you what happened. I explained earlier about the Zoom account on the town administrator. That's now 0 as well. That's a reduction of $10,000. And that's also it's the whatever gets it on YouTube Live from our vendor that we use to do that as well. On the page 7 under tax sale, I'm just confirming that the town council did approve $2,000 for tax sale. Because I'm not sure what number is on your budget.
3,000.
Okay, but the town council voted for 2, so that's why you want to use the form that says 4/10/2021 at the top now, okay? As you move forward. Now I'll make the adjustments tonight that you did for the budget committee votes because I have them all written down. The pension plan under the special employee retirements, I had it at 8,500. It's actually 8,000. Okay. So the council did make that adjustment as well. Under Social Security, I believe it was 625,000. It is now 600,000. Okay, so let me go on to page 8. Under the fire department, there is a slight adjustment for the chief's salary. Now, the council isn't aware of this. It is the same exact number you have. It is in total 83,000. Mine's blurry. 150.
851.
Okay. So the chief can apply for a grant, an EMA grant, to pay for a portion of his salary. So the only way that they'll fund it, though, is if you break it out that he actually has an EMA salary, because if it just says chief salary, it doesn't qualify for the grant. So what we're doing is, you'll see it's the same line item, 5,100. We just broke his line item to show it's EMA, just so that we can qualify to apply for the grant. So that
Makes
didn't
sense.
change the number, but it's just so that we can apply for the grant. They changed the overtime from what was 125 to 150. And just so that you understand the discussion, when we put in the 2 rotators, the council wanted to reduce the overtime from 150 to 125. They've also opted to take the 2 rotators out. So the $118,000 for the 2 rotators is no longer in the budget. What I didn't tell the council on Saturday is the light blue items. It's the paid holidays, the EMS incentive, and the clothing allowance also had adjustments. I believe, like the clothing allowance went from 47,000 down to 43,000. That did account for the deputy chief and the 2 rotators. That was the increase. The EMS incentive, I forget what the number was before, the 103. I think it was 108 or something like that. I don't have your old sheet in front of me.
101, Chris.
What? No, that was last year. Prior to
It's 115,050.
okay, so there was a significant drop in that because of the EMS incentive. And then the paid holidays also were dropped down. And I forget again what the number was before the 92. But that's attributed to the deputy chief and the 2 rotators. So those numbers will be adjusted by the council in the next meeting. All right, so that way you'll both be on the same page. Let's see.
Chris, before you go on that,
Sure.
how soon would those firefighters be needed if we needed 4 new firefighters? What
They'll
was
be
it?
needed at the very end of their contract on July 1st of 2023, 2022, I meant.
2022. All right, thank you.
Okay. On page 10, I don't know if you knew that the town council did vote in favor of this 18,500 for municipal court. I don't think they had done that prior to any other docket that we had provided to you. And let me see. On page 12, under DPW, there was a reduction made for tree removal from 15,000 to 10,000. And there was another reduction made from minor equipment replacement. I believe it was at
103, looks like.
103, and it was dropped down to 90,000. Okay. And we believe that we can probably pay for some of that with the new federal money. That's part of the rationale for that. And the last item is on page 16. The town council did vote that there would be to put on the docket, the reduction of SRO funding from the schools to be reimbursed to the town for their half as what was an agreement previously and what is in accordance with state law. And I believe the state law is 16-7.2-6I. Specifically says that half the funds would be reimbursed to the town. So that's the end of it. So that's, I wanted you to be at the same place where the town council is and will be as of Mondays. And if there are any additional adjustments that the council does on Monday, I'll definitely let you know, or the next budget hearing, because Monday is actually a council meeting. So
Yeah.
I forget when the next budget meeting is with the council. I'll get that to you as well. Okay. Any other questions about what we did on Saturday?
Chris, our budget meeting is Monday.
It is Monday?
Yeah,
Again, there's so many meetings.
yeah. It's our off week.
Okay, so it is Monday then. I think I covered everything, Deb, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything we did Saturday.
Any discussion? John?
I guess just airing of the grievances, as it were. It kind of it feels like we're redundant here and just dependent upon whatever the whims of the town council may be in any given week. And, I think that at some point the, voters in this town need to take a good hard look at how this FTR process operates because, quite frankly, I'm a little upset having looked back at the last few months that we've spent hours and hours here as a budget committee going through these line items, meeting with people from various departments, discussing whether or not we want to increase, decrease, take preliminary votes, only to have, here, now several months later, the town council say, it turns out we don't really need that item. Or it turns out we don't want to fund this thing. Or, we're going to take the town sergeant, we're going to knock it down from $500. It's, I don't appreciate, doing this work on behalf of the voters in this town to have my time effectively wasted because the town council's whims have changed. And it's just a general frustration I have. I'm not looking for feedback from anybody, but I want to make sure that everybody knows this, that, I don't think that this process that we go through is beneficial to anybody. It's just a way for us to waste time here and have discussions and to have conversations on Zoom meetings, and take time away from our families. And so I just wanted to make that known because it really perturbs me that, we've spent all this time having these discussions only to have them revised without our input and handed back to us.
So
Oh,
I know you
Chris,
don't want to.
hang on, Chris.
All right.
Let me just say that we heard from the department heads too. And sometimes we'll hear from citizens. So our job here is to hear from not just the council, but the department heads. Now, the council went through and they made some tough cuts because they know funding is going to be tough this year. And I watched the hearings and all the discussion was, yes, we probably need that, but we can't do it this year, or we'll find another way to do it because of stimulus money. But our job is to compare what the department heads want and then what the council is asking for. So we're kind of we have a job here, and our job is to look at every possible aspect of it via request and opinion from the council on what they think they need. But in the end, we make a recommendation to the town, and it's very important, in my opinion, that we see and hear everything. So I don't feel like we wasted time going through the budget and hearing from the department heads, because I don't want to just hear. I just don't want to be handed a budget from the council without hearing from them, because many times I've heard where we did any things and the council say, well, maybe we should cut it, because we don't want to get too high on the taxes. I could go on about this, but we do have an important job here.
You do.
And we work for the people in this town. I don't think we wasted our time.
So, John, I completely empathize and appreciate your comments. It is very, very difficult, but I will say the last year and this year are completely out of the norm. When we're fighting as to whether or not we don't know what the state's going to do with the overall aid to our town, that we didn't get a state budget done until like September. Our own budget got done in September. They didn't even do this till October. I mean, and we were kind of guessing as to how to do this current year. And the same thing happened again with all the stimulus. It's going to pass. It's going to pass. It's going to pass. Now, granted, this time it did pass. I mean, we kicked the can down the road till July to do the FTR because we didn't know where we were going to be. So it is difficult to go through this, and I get it. It is. It does seem like we've been meeting at, an awful lot of, and not knowing where we're going. But now that this federal money is coming out and the state is in a position now to actually adopt a budget and we'll know what our aid is that's coming in, it does make it so that we can now get to a finalized point. We just haven't finished some of these final pieces yet. So until the picture of what the assessors look like, the assessment goes and our non-tax revenues look like, to put it against this, picture, I agree. I don't like going back to the directors either, all these departments and saying, we got to do this again. We got to do it one more time. But we also cannot take all this federal money that's coming in and use it to offset our taxes by stripping out these budgets. It's not going to be allowed. So it is totally frustrating. And I get exactly your point. I do. It's just tough.
Well, I just want to clarify that a little bit. I guess my point being is that in the charter, it stipulates that our job on the budget committee here is to balance the needs of the town with the ability of the taxpayers to pay.
Yep.
That doesn't seem to me like that's the responsibility of the town council. And for, this back and forth to go back, we're cutting this, we're changing this, but it just seems like we're wasting time and like the council is doing our job. and we're sitting here going, okay, great, thanks for sending that over to us. So I just want to know at what point we as a budget committee actually do our job, which is to balance the needs of the town with the ability of the taxpayers to pay, which is something that the council does not possess. That's what's given to us by charter. So it's frustrating to me that, we've had these discussions and that the council is running in parallel on the municipal side. And it seems like the school committee should be doing the same, but they aren't. It's just, why are we having these discussions and having these hearings if, one of those two bodies is going to change something and turn around and say, this is what we actually want. It's our job to decide. It's our job as a budget committee to put recommendation. We don't need their input.
Joe, I'd like to make a couple of comments on what's going on. First of all, I've been advocating to push the town financial meeting back until July for years. When I was on a council, why are we making a budget out when we don't even know what the state's going to give us in the first place? Their budget's not done until June sometime, most years. And here we are, making ours in May. So I think that's something we should look at, pushing this back, wait until we get the numbers from them, and not even counting, what happened this year or last year with COVID. That just threw a monkey wrench into everything. But normally we should be looking at moving it back and getting the correct numbers, whether it's the school department or the town. And secondly, to John's point is, I think what the council is trying to do, and it's just give us a little bit of guidance, is what they're trying to do. We do have the final say on who gets what, and that's a vote that is taken by the 9 members of the budget committee. So if you want to increase something that the council says, no, we're going to cut that, you want to put it back in, you got all the right in the world to put it back in as part of the budget committee. You can do that, but you got to get the votes from the budget committee to get it passed. That's what that's our job. That's our main function.
Deb?
So I sat on the budget committee for 6 years, now on the council. Just remember, it's the budget committee's docket that goes before the voters.
Right.
And as a budget committee member, I very much appreciated information that the council gave us, as I very much appreciated hearing from all the department heads also, talking to the taxpayers and whatnot. But it's the budget committee that sets that budget that goes before the voters. So there were times that we took things off that the council wanted and we put more money into it. There were times that we cut things from the budget that the council wanted. Sometimes we put in more, but that's up to you guys. And it's not easy. I was on that budget committee last year that we went through the whole summer, and talk about trying to fly without radar, because it was a tough call. And thankfully we had Chris behind us and making cuts and holding us accountable and holding the department heads accountable, because we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. And as dire as it seems, we're in a lot better situation than we would have been without all of that. So I totally appreciate everything you do, because I sat there for 6 years and it's not always fun, but you do have that power by the charter.
I've seen councils that wanted to come in and they wanted to be Santa Claus, and then the budget committee had to be the Scrooge. You know what I'm saying? I'm happy that the budget committee that the town council actually took the initiative to go back through the budget and I watched it. You found a lot of stuff.
So
all right.
I do think that and I'm assuming the school will do the same thing, because the town financial referendum got kicked, that the deadline to submit the final budget from the administrator and the town council has also been kicked. So they're trying to put their best and last foot, their last foot is their best foot forward to the budget committee. And then you guys will take the reins from there. I know it's laborious, it's long, and it seems unwieldy because of it being pushed down the road. Otherwise, the council would have been locked into a budget back in February. So I don't know when the date is. I think everybody has that. I will send it this week to everybody, what the new schedule is, because the council will be locked in to a budget pretty soon. And I think that they're just trying to put their best foot forward, that based on all the new information that they have, this is the best that they can do. And they're going to rely on you to go forward from there. So I don't think it's, trying to usurp anybody's authority or to overstep anybody. I just think it's the process of what we've been dealing with for the last 2 years by delaying things. And, last year when we delayed, the town council and the school committee were already locked in. The only one left to actually do any changes to the budget was the budget committee.
Yeah.
So this year it's a little bit different. So it does seem a little unwieldy. I apologize for that, but I think everybody is just trying to do the best that they can on behalf of the town. I appreciate everything the budget committee is doing. I do know that, you'll probably make some adjustments that the council may or may not like. It's, in the school committee the same way, but I think that both the town council and the school committee need to put their best foot forward for you with the best information that they have at the time when they're locked out of the budget and it's only in your hands. So, it has been a long year, but it will come to an end soon, I hope.
I think, being on the budget committee as long as I have, I've learned things about this town I never would have sitting in my living room. Most of it I don't even want to know because so many problems in this town.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to adjourn?
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second. Okay, you have an unanimous consent.